guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm here with a story about a couple of reality TV shows I've worked on. A couple of experiences that I've had with reality TV shows because last week an assistant from a production company emailed me about a project she was working on and wanted me to be part of the show. Now it sounds super exciting to get an email about being on reality TV, but the fact is that I get these emails actually all the time, so it's not that exciting and the projects rarely take flight. However, with that said, because I get these emails all the time, sometimes the projects do end up picking up some speed. And none of the projects that I've worked on in the past have actually made it to an actual television show, but the stories are still really interesting and the experiences were a lot of fun. Okay, so actually the first time I ever got emailed from a production company, it was MTV doing a project with Kelly Cutrone, and if you ever watched The City or The Hills with Lauren Conrad, she was like the mean boss. She was supposed to get her own show with MTV and that they were casting talent for the show. So someone, I think, had found my blog and had reached out to me, which is how it always happens. And I'm confused because I'd actually never done this before, so I wasn't exactly sure like what I was getting myself into, but I decided to just say yes and go along for the ride. And at first it was just a bunch of phone calls. So I was taking phone calls with assistants and production people, and they were asking me all these questions. I was filling out long questionnaires on like a Word document and emailing them back. And then they'd call me back later and ask a bunch of follow-up questions, and it just kind of went back and forth like that for a while. But it was becoming clear that I was definitely in the running. I could tell that they were interviewing a lot of people and then narrowing it down from there. So at a certain point they asked me to put together like a little video clip, which I actually still have, so I'm gonna have Carter run that right now.
Hi, I'm Carly Heitlinger. I'm a senior in the McDonough School of Business at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
So let me show you a little bit about what I do. Here's my blog, College Prep, and I write as a college prepster. So as you can see, I write about a ton of different stuff: fashion, interests, advice, inspirational. Here today I blogged about Pinterest. Yesterday I blogged about OneNote and how to organize your laptop.
It's honestly so embarrassing to watch that, but it is so funny. My friend Charles, who was on the crew team with me, filmed it for me on a flip cam. I didn't even have an iPhone to film this on, and it was so funny to go around campus to film it together. Once I sent that off, they were definitely interested, but they said that I wouldn't hear from them for a while, so I kind of just put it out of my mind and forgot all about it. And then I was home for some sort of break with my mom, and my mom and I had gone into the movie theater, watched a movie, and when we were driving home, I got this number from 212, which is a New York City area code, and I had this gut feeling that it was MTV, even though I really wasn't sure, and it had been like 6 months since I had talked to them last. So I answer the phone, my mom's driving, I'm in the front seat, and they just launch into this full-blown interview. And it was definitely, even though I had talked to them before, this was so much more intense. They were asking me all these really difficult and hard questions. It was kind of stressful. I felt like I was in the hot seat. And as I kept going in the phone call, the questions just kept getting harder and harder to answer, and they're trying to figure out what I wanted to be in 10 years, and if I said something, they'd follow up with the question that I said 10 minutes ago, and they said, okay, well 10 minutes ago you said this, is that what you meant? I was so overwhelmed. I actually felt like the tears welling in my eyes, and eventually I just started to cry. And they're like, oh, great, great. Now, mind you, this had been 40 minutes, and my mom knew that this was going on, so she just kept driving around the neighborhood in big circles while I'm taking this phone call and getting super sweaty, super nervous. I'm starting to cry, and my poor mom's probably thinking, like, what the heck is going on? Like, what are they asking her? And once I got to the end of the interview, they're like, this was great. We were really hoping that you would be our crier. I was like, what? What do you mean I'm gonna be the crier? And I guess like when they go into these shows, they really typecast people and they try to get to know their personalities, and then that's the box that they're gonna fit into. So for me, I was going to be the person who cried, and Kelly Cutrone made cry, which doesn't seem that hard to do. So they wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to break down in like the first 5 minutes, but that I would eventually break down. So MTV, you definitely cast me right on that one because I did cry. Now the show ended up not getting picked up, and I think there was some sort of like contracting issue with Kelly Cutrone. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but it's been a lot of years, so I'm sure it's fine. I am relieved the show didn't get picked up. It was supposed to be called Normal Gets You Nowhere, so it was talking about like people who aren't normal. That's definitely me. I actually did end up meeting Kelly Cutrone at my next job out of college, and the funny thing is that she took one look at me and like literally sized me up and goes, "Oh, I bet you were that mean girl in high school who hit girls with their field hockey sticks." It's like, no, I was actually the nerd. I don't know why she thought that, but it was kind of funny. So the second reality TV show, not that I worked on or that I had ever been contacted about, but definitely the next one that had its own legs and actually went someplace, was one that I had been contacted about when I was working in New York City during my first job. It actually lasted for a whole year. It was something I was like kind of working on and off while I was working at my job. It was kind of stressful, but it was so much fun. It was definitely one of the funner projects I've ever done, which was sad because it never went anywhere, and this is the first time you're probably hearing about it. So the premise of the show is that they wanted it to be like a real life girls or like a Sex in the City, but with bloggers and influencers. And this was like right when influencers were becoming a thing. So it was like definitely this new thing, and girls was really popular at the time. So they were looking for 4 girls, and I went in for an initial meeting because the girl who was pitching the show to her bosses read my blog, and I went in and I think they were really interested. They liked what I had to say, so I got called back for a next meeting, and I actually brought one of my blogging friends with me to this one. And the other girl that was in the room, who randomly I just saw on Instagram stories, literally haven't heard her name in like 5 years, and then I just saw her. It was kind of random, but she ended up not getting chosen, and my friend, who's also a blogger, and I were definitely in the next round, and they were trying to figure out like which direction they wanted it to go in. And the 2 of us lived on the Upper East Side, so we thought, oh, it'd be cool if we got 2 like downtown bloggers, just as sort of juxtaposition between the 2 types of bloggers. We were like more preppy and classic, and then we found 2 bloggers who we were friends with who had like an edgier, trendier look. So it was this uptown, downtown blogger vibe, and I think one of the girls was in like a lawsuit, so she ended up backing out, and because she backed out, her best friend backed out. So it was just the 2 of us again, and we ended up pulling in 2 more of our friends who we loved, and so it became the 4 of us, and that was gonna be like the cast. So we have this big lunch with like the production people, and they were really nice and actually let us have a lot of involvement in how we wanted to be represented, because even though it's not scripted, it is kind of scripted at the end of the day, but they wanted us to feel comfortable with the characters that we were going to ultimately be portraying. So we each got to pick like a phrase for us of how we wanted to be known. I'm pretty sure mine was like type A or perfectionist, or a combination of that. That was like my thing, which I was fine with. And then the other girls had their own little characters, and we all blended together perfectly, just like Sex in the City or Girls. One of the girls had, her phrase was work hard, party harder. Like, we had this one line when we shot the sizzle reel, and it was like, when, let's just call her Sally. So it was like, they did the voiceover and it goes, Sally is partying until the sun comes up, and then it was like this panning over to me about how I was like waking up with the sun to walk my dog. Okay, so after that lunch meeting, when we come up with like our characters, the next part of the process was to film a sizzle reel, which is kind of like a 4-minute, somewhere between a mini episode and a trailer that just gives whoever's watching it a really quick glimpse at what the show's gonna be about. So it was like 4 minutes. But even though it was only 4 minutes of footage, we took like, must have been like 25 hours to actually film everything. It took forever, and it was like multiple days worth of shooting, but so much fun. We're like going into stores with camera crew. So after we had spent like the 25 hours going around New York City filming this sizzle reel, it was time for them to put it together. So we actually didn't hear from them for a while. So funny enough, the girl who was editing the project actually lived in the next building over from me on the Upper East Side, so we would see each other like every morning. And ultimately they sent us this Dropbox link. It was like a private link to see the trailer that they were gonna start pitching to different networks. It was so dramatic and so hilarious, especially having gone through and actually living those 25 hours and then seeing it boil down to 4 minutes. I have a whole new appreciation for reality TV, and you can just see how someone said one line and it was either taken out of context and all of a sudden it has this whole new meaning. One of the girls in her like private at-home interviews swore, and they took that one line where she said the swear word and made it literally the climax of the sizzle reel. So it's like the music is building, the music is building, the music is building, and then she just swears like at the top of it. So she was very sassy in it, which she's not actually like in real life, and it was very clear after watching the sizzle reel that they just thought I was very smart and very hardworking, but a total bore, which I was totally fine with, honestly, because I didn't want to be portrayed like any of the other girls, which they were fine with their portrayals, but it was hilarious. I wish I had the clip. I've tried to go back through, but it was like an expired link. Pretty sure that it's canned, which means like they put, like back in the olden days, they would put the film in a canister and it would go into storage. And I think they could probably still sell the show to someone else. I'm sure they would pick a different cast since none of us live in New York City anymore. Funny enough, we all moved like right after we finished the project. There were so many complicated and funny things about it. It never ended up going anywhere, which I'm, again, totally fine with. So that's the second story, reality TV, that I kind of was working on. Okay, so then for the last story, it's actually totally different and super short, quick story, but a producer found my blog. I had written a blog post about cooking with my grandma one day and like having her share some of her recipes with my mom and I and then making it. And so I had this whole blog post. They found it for a TV show on the Food Network called Clashing with the Grandmas, or Grandma Clashing, something like that. And they wanted to cast my grandma. So I was kind of serving as like an agent for my grandma and saying, like, scheduling stuff for her. And they loved my grandma because she's Jewish, so they were really interested in her bringing kind of this different ethnic flair. A lot of the people on the show had done like Southern cooking, so they liked that she was Jewish, and a lot of the other grandmas were in their 50s and 60s, which is still pretty young, and my grandma's 90, so they loved it. She was like 90 and still like cooking in the kitchen, and she was super funny. But when we went to schedule the Skype interview, which was how they were gonna see how she acted and was on TV, my grandma was on a 2-week cruise to Spain and chose the cruise, obviously, over the TV show. But I just thought it was so funny that here she is, 90 years old, traveling the world, and just does not care about being on TV whatsoever. And I was really hoping she'd be on Clash of the Grandmas and that I could become her agent. Okay, so those are all my reality TV show related stories for the day. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment if you would watch a reality TV show with me. It actually wouldn't be that interesting, so say no. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe.